My name is Jeff, and I'm the last free man in Nigeria. It wasn't always this way. Just a year ago, I was a regular guy working a 9-to-5 job in Lagos and dreaming of a better future. But now, my life is a never-ending nightmare. It all began when a group of women called themselves the Revolution rose up. They claimed men were the root of all evil, and they started a brutal campaign to eliminate us. Many men were killed, while others were captured and enslaved. I survived by sheer luck and by staying one step ahead. Now I live like a ghost, hiding in abandoned buildings and moving under the cover of darkness. The cities are dangerous. The women patrol the streets with weapons, hunting for any man who might still be alive. If they find you, you're either dead or worse, captured. I need to escape Nigeria. I've heard rumors of safe havens in neighboring countries where men are still free. But getting there won't be easy. The borders are heavily guarded, and anyone caught trying to cross is executed on the spot. It was midnight, and I was hiding in the ruins of an old school in Abuja. The air was thick and hot, and my stomach growled from hunger. I hadn't eaten in 2 days, but leaving my hiding place to find food was risky. I pressed my ear to the wall, listening for any sound of movement. That's when I heard them. Boots crunching on gravel, voices whispering in the dark. "They say a man was spotted around here," one of the women said. My heart raced. They were looking for me. I grabbed my small bag, which held all I owned, a half-empty water bottle, a pocket knife, and a map of Nigeria. Quietly, I slipped out through a back window and into the night. The streets were empty, but I knew better than to trust the silence. I stuck to the shadows, moving quickly but carefully. The goal was simple: avoid being seen. Suddenly, a flashlight beam swept across the alley in front of me. I froze, pressing myself against the wall. "There, over there!" a voice shouted. I was spotted. Without thinking, I ran. My feet pounded against the pavement as I darted through the narrow streets, with the sound of footsteps chasing me. They were fast, but fear made me faster. I turned a corner and saw an old, broken-down car. Diving behind it, I held my breath as the women ran past, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. "Fan out! He couldn't have gone far," one of them ordered. I waited until their voices faded, then crawled out of my hiding spot. I had to keep moving. The next day, I stumbled upon an abandoned marketplace. Most of the stalls were empty, but I found a bag of dried beans and some bottled water in a corner. As I stuffed the food into my bag, I heard a noise behind me. Spinning around, I saw a young woman standing there, holding a knife. "Don't move," she said. I raised my hands. "I'm not here to fight, I just need food." She looked at me for a long moment, then lowered her knife. "You're one of the last men, aren't you?" I nodded, unsure if she was friend or foe. "My name is Aisha," she said. "I don't agree with what the others are doing. I can help you, but you have to trust me." I didn't have much of a choice. If she wanted to turn me in, she would have already done it. "What's your plan?" I asked. "There's a truck leaving for the border tonight," she said. "It's transporting goods, and I can hide you in it. But once we get close to the border, you're on your own." That night, Aisha brought me to the truck. It was an old vehicle loaded with crates of food and supplies. She helped me climb into the back and covered me with a tarp. "Stay quiet," she whispered, "and good luck." The truck rumbled to life, and we began the long journey to the border. I lay perfectly still, listening to the sound of the engine and the occasional chatter of the guards riding in the front. Hours passed. Just when I thought I might make it, the truck came to a sudden stop. "What's going on?" a voice outside asked. "Routine inspection," another voice replied. "Open the back." Panic surged through me as the tarp was pulled away and a flashlight beam lit up my face. "There's a man in here," one of the guards shouted. Before they could react, I grabbed my knife and lunged at the nearest guard. It was chaotic. I managed to knock one of them out, but the others came at me with guns. I jumped out of the truck and ran into the forest. The forest was dark and full of strange sounds. I could hear the guards shouting behind me, their flashlights cutting through the trees. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs felt like they would give out. Finally, I found a small cave and crawled inside, hiding in the shadows. The cave was damp and cold, but it was the only safe place I could find. I crouched in the shadows, trying to quiet my breathing. My heart felt like it was going to explode out of my chest, but I couldn't let panic take over. I had survived this long by staying calm, and I wasn't going to give up now. Outside, I could hear the voices of the women trailing me. "He couldn't have gone far," one of them said. "Spread out, check every corner of this forest. He has to be close." The beam of a flashlight passed near the cave's entrance, and I pressed myself deeper into the darkness. My knife was clenched tightly in my hand. It wasn't much, but it was the only weapon I had. "Do you see anything?" another voice called out. "Not yet, but keep looking. He's smart, but no one escapes the revolution." I stayed still, my muscles aching from the tension. I knew they would search everywhere, and it was only a matter of time before they found me. I needed a plan. I couldn't let her alert the others. Holding my breath, I crept up behind her. Just as she turned, I lunged, grabbing her and covering her mouth before she could scream. "Don't move," I whispered. Her eyes widened in fear, but she didn't struggle. I tied her hands with a piece of rope I had in my bag and took her weapon. It was a small victory, but I knew it wouldn't last long. I dragged her into the bushes and whispered, "If you make a sound, I'll have no choice but to." I couldn't even finish the sentence. I didn't want to kill anyone, but I was desperate. She nodded, her eyes glinting with anger, but also something else, fear. With her gun in hand, I moved deeper into the forest, using the thick foliage for cover. I knew the other women would soon notice one of their own was missing. I heard more voices nearby. "Has anyone found him yet?" "No, but something's not right. I lost contact with Yemi." "Stay alert, he's around here somewhere." I spotted 2 women walking through the trees, their rifles at the ready. I had to think fast. Picking up a rock, I tossed it into the bushes on the other side of them. The sound startled them, and they immediately turned toward it, their guns raised. "It came from over there," one of them shouted. As they moved toward the noise, I slipped away, keeping low and moving as quickly as I could. As dawn approached, I found myself near a small stream. I knelt down and drank greedily, the cold water soothing my dry throat. I was exhausted, but I couldn't stop. "Drop the weapon." The voice came from behind me. I froze, the stolen rifle slipping from my hands. Slowly, I turned to see a woman standing there, her gun aimed at my chest. But something about her was different. Her face wasn't filled with the same hatred I had seen in the others. "You're Jeff, aren't you?" she asked. I nodded, my hands raised. "Who are you?" "My name is Amina," she said. "I've been tracking you, but not to capture you. I want to help." "Help," I said, my voice skeptical. "I don't believe in what the revolution is doing," she said, lowering her weapon. "I've seen too much bloodshed and I can't be part of it anymore. You're trying to escape, aren't you?" "Yes," I said cautiously. "Why would you help me?" "Because someone helped me once," she said, her voice soft. "And because this madness has to end." Amina told me she knew a way to get me across the border. There was an old smuggler's route that was rarely used anymore, but it would take us through dangerous territory controlled by rogue factions of the revolution. "It's risky," she said, "but it's your best chance." "I'll take any chance I can get," I replied. Amina led me deeper into the forest, her pace quick and purposeful. She moved like someone who had spent years surviving in the wilderness. Every few minutes, she'd stop, listening for any sound that didn't belong. I followed closely, clutching the rifle I had taken, though I didn't know how much help it would be if things went south. "We need to move fast," Amina whispered, glancing over her shoulder. "They'll figure out the direction we're heading soon." "Are we close to the smuggler's route?" I asked. "Not yet. A few more kilometers," she replied. Suddenly, the distant roar of engines echoed through the forest. My heart sank. "They've got vehicles," I said, panic creeping into my voice. Amina cursed under her breath. "We'll have to lose them first." We started running, the sound of engines growing louder. The undergrowth made it hard to move quickly, and every snap of a twig felt like a betrayal. I glanced back and saw the faint beams of headlights cutting through the trees. The revolution was closing in. "There's a clearing up ahead," Amina said. "We can use it to get a better view of their position." When we reached the clearing, we crouched low, peeking out from behind a fallen tree. A convoy of 3 jeeps was approaching, their headlights sweeping the forest. Women in tactical gear leaned out of the vehicles, their weapons ready. "They're too organized," Amina muttered. We can't outrun them on foot. I was about to reply when my eyes caught something in the distance. An abandoned car half hidden by vines and moss. There, I pointed. If we can get that car working, we might have a chance. Amina squinted at the vehicle and nodded. It's a gamble, but it's better than nothing. We sprinted toward the car, keeping low to avoid being seen. The vehicle was an old sedan, its paint peeling and tires partially deflated. Amina quickly yanked open the driver's door and slid in. "I'll check the engine," she said, motioning for me to keep watch. I knelt beside the car, scanning the forest. The jeeps were getting closer. I could hear the voices of the women shouting orders. "Hurry," I urged. Amina popped the hood and inspected the engine. "It's old, but it might work. Help me push it onto the flat ground." Together we shoved the car forward, the wheels groaning in protest. Amina climbed back in, fiddling with some wires under the dashboard. Come on," she muttered, twisting the wires together. The engine sputtered once, then fell silent. The sound of boots hitting the ground told me the jeeps had stopped, and the women were now on foot, spreading out to search the area. "Amina," I hissed, gripping the rifle. "They're here!" She ignored me, focusing entirely on the engine. Just a little more. The first flashlight beam appeared, sweeping through the trees. I raised the rifle, aiming at the approaching figure. My hands were shaking. "Don't shoot unless you have to," Amina said, her voice calm despite the tension. The engine roared to life, startling me. Amina grinned. "Get in!" I jumped into the passenger seat as Amina slammed her foot on the gas. The old sedan lurched forward, crashing through bushes and trees. The sound of the engine drew attention, and soon the jeeps were back on our trail. "They're right behind us," I shouted, looking back to see the headlights closing in. "Hold on," Amina yelled, swerving to avoid a tree. The car bounced over uneven terrain, the tires barely gripping the muddy ground. Bullets whizzed past us, one shattering the rear window. I ducked instinctively. "They're shooting at us!" I said, panic rising. "Then shoot back!" Amina snapped. I raised the rifle and leaned out of the window, aiming at the nearest jeep. My first shot missed, but the second hit one of the tires, causing the vehicle to swerve and crash into a tree. "Yes," I shouted, adrenaline pumping through me. "There's still two more." Amina reminded me, her eyes locked on the rough path ahead. The second jeep pulled up beside us, the women inside shouting orders. One of them aimed a gun at me, and I fired first, hitting her shoulder. She dropped her weapon, and the jeep veered away, giving us some breathing room. The last jeep was relentless, ramming into our car from behind. Amina gritted her teeth, trying to keep control. "We can't take much more of this," she shouted. Up ahead, the forest thinned out, revealing a narrow bridge over a rushing river. Amina floored the gas pedal. "Are you crazy?" I yelled. "Trust me," she said, gripping the wheel tightly. The bridge was barely wide enough for the car. As we sped across it, the jeep behind us tried to follow but misjudged the turn. It skidded off the edge, crashing into the river below. As dawn broke, we reached the edge of the smuggler's route. Amina pulled the car to a stop and looked at me. "This is as far as I go," she said. "The rest of the journey is up to you." "What about you?" I asked. "I'll be fine," she said with a faint smile. "But you, get to that safe haven and don't look back." I wanted to argue, but I knew she had made up her mind. I nodded, gripping her hand briefly. "Thank you, Amina, for everything." I walked into the unknown, hoping for the best possible outcome. Will I see other men on the other side? Or will I face the same predicament I faced here over there? I don't know, but deep down my belly I was ready for whatever the future has in stock for me.